Somehow you're able to fall back to sleep after that. If you dream, it's not of Kylo, but you can't be sure you dreamed at all as you're suddenly awakened by the bounce of Annie jumping up and down on the bed.
Annie,
You whisper crossly.
sit down. What are you doing? You have to get up soon.
Annie tells you, and you groan as you roll onto your back. Annie continues jumping on the bed, and you fight off a little wave of nausea as you quickly push yourself off it.
You're in a good mood.
You observe testily. Not that you weren't, but your dream with Kylo had brought on a whole new wave of questions, and you knew that no one you talked to was going to provide any answers for this one. So you preferred to keep the whole thing quiet and wait and see if you had any more dreams like this. It was that, and the fact that you weren't really a morning person. You duck into your private bathroom that was attached to your bedroom, savoring the fact that you had your own private bathroom again. You had your own private bathroom on the Starkiller base, before you shared with Kylo, although he wasn't there most of the time, so it was basically just yours. But after that, you had been forced to share a tiny bathroom with Ladson, which wasn't too terrible, but it got worse when you threw a young Annie into the mix. To be honest, you were sort of glad not to share that cramped house with them anymore. You didn't know if you'd head back there eventually, but you figured it wasn't worth dwelling over. You had headed to the Starkiller base for a 6-month internship, and by the time 10 weeks were up, you had assumed that you were stuck there indefinitely. And then, just when you had gotten used to that idea, you had been forcibly ejected into space, sent spiraling back to your old academia. This time, you were determined to be a little smarter about this, and you were not going to make any assumptions where you would be a week, a month, or even a year from now, because you just didn't know. You wash up quickly and dress into your orange jumpsuit. It wasn't an absolutely terrible uniform, but you preferred the soft fabric of your own clothes more. As you step out of the bathroom, Annie is sitting at the bed, staring at you with the dark eyes that reminded you so much of his father.
Do you like it here, Annie?
You ask him, desperate to get your thoughts off Kylo.
Yeah.
Annie replies.
Everyone's nice here. I want to stay here forever and ever. Forever and ever.
You muse, forcing a tight-lipped smile in his direction.
If we stay here forever and ever, you'll definitely never see your dad again.
You think, but you can't bring yourself to say it aloud.
Are you going to hang out with your friends today? Mm-hmm.
Annie says, nodding his head up and down.
And Grandma. She smells really nice.
He tilts his head to the side, as if considering something for the first time.
Why didn't you tell me I had a grandma?
You hesitate for a moment, trying to get your sleep-locked brain to wake up.
Because.
You reply hesitantly.
Because she wanted to keep it a surprise.
It sounds like bullshit to your ears, but Annie eats it up.
But I hate surprises.
He fusses, crossing his tiny arms across his chest. He pouts for a moment, but you just walk over and muss his hair.
But she's here now.
You offer.
Doesn't that count for something? I guess.
Annie mopes, and you bend down to give him a quick hug as there's a knock on the door. You head over and open it confidently, not surprised in the slightest by who's standing there.
I didn't expect you to be up.
Poe muses with the look of good humor on his face.
Blame this one.
You say, gesturing to Annie, who is peering around your legs.
I'm by no means a morning person. Hey, champ.
Poe drops down to his level, and Annie doesn't pull away.
How are you doing? You like it here? Thank you for bringing us.
Annie chirps, nodding his head up and down, and you look down at him in surprise. You would assume that most of your lessons of civility wouldn't stick, but apparently this one had. It was an important one, to be sure, and your heart swelled with maternal affection.
Good boy, Annie.
You say, mussing his hair.
Now, why don't you go back to sleep before you have to wake up, huh? But I'm already up.
Annie says, shoulders slumping.
Then go wake up Ladson.
You whisper in a hushed, excited tone, and Annie nods, bouncing on the tips of his tiny feet as he turns and runs into his bedroom. Poe just laughs as you step out the door, closing it firmly behind you.
That's a cute kid,
Poe says, although you're pretty sure that's exactly what he said to you yesterday morning.
He has his moments.
You shrug.
Although it appears he's actually listening when I'm talking to him, which is sort of a shock, but like mother, like son.
Poe says teasingly, and your brain is so sleep-locked that it takes you a moment to process the insult.
Oh, you ass!
You hit his arm with the back of your hand as you walk, and Poe throws his head back in laughter.
I am plenty good at following directions. If yesterday was any indication, I didn't crash us. You didn't.
Poe says.
So how'd you feel about leaving the planet's atmosphere today? Leaving the atmosphere?
You ask blankly.
You mean, like, going into space? That's what I mean.
Poe repeats.
Sure.
You reply, too tired to think about the possible complications at this early hour.
I mean, if you think I'm up for it.
Poe just nods as you arrive in the hangar, and you clamber into the transport shuttle to see a helmet and the fighter vest sitting on your seat. You pick up the helmet with both hands, grimacing as you notice the Starboard Resistance logo on the side. If you put this on, weren't you basically choosing sides? Anyone that saw you with this on would automatically assume you were part of the Resistance. Out of the corner of your eye, you can see Poe watching you closely, and you quickly wipe the grimace off your face with a quick explanation.
I hate helmets.
You explain simply, brushing your braid off your shoulder.
Just never been a fan. Well, you're going to need it.
Poe replies as he slides the helmet over his own head.
Once we leave Dakar's atmosphere, we'll have to deal with the asteroid ring and the radiation from the local star. I had my guys add a basic light shield generator to the shuttle last night, but the repulsors can only lift so much extra weight, and we don't have any tug lifts here, so we're going to have to wear the fighter gear. This way, we're protected from the remaining radiation the shield can't filter, and on the remote chance we have a run-in with one of the rocks, we'll have the emergency survival kits. 3 hours of life support, a week of supplies, and the vest doubles as a sleeping bag if we need it.
He points to a small red pull tab strung over his left shoulder that led to a raised square on the back. You turn your head to the side just slightly to see a similar tab and a square on the vest draped across your seat.
That shouldn't be a problem, though, since we're doing a polar ascension. Even still, better to be safe than sorry. You got that right.
You mutter as you put on your own protective gear. You had thought that the helmet was heavy when you first slipped it over your head, but it was nothing compared to how heavy the vest was, and you're thankful you don't have to get up and walk around in it.
Okay.
You breathe.
So teach me, O wise one. Show me how to get a ship into space. Oh, I'm not going to do it.
Poe says.
You're going to do it. Start her up.
You sigh and follow the same startup sequence as the last time, waiting for the reactor status ring of lights to turn to a solid green. You notice that there's a new, extra blue light in the center of the ring this time, and you realize it probably has something to do with the shield generator that Poe had just mentioned. As you complete the startup sequence, you can't help but notice that the ship is also hovering a bit lower than it was yesterday. When you're finally ready to disengage the damper and switch to flight mode, Poe turns to you with a grin on his face.
See? Confidence. What did I tell you?
You laugh, shaking your head as a grin splits across your face.
I'm gonna kill us if I try to do anything except steer.
You tell him. Now it's Poe's turn to frown.
You just have to have more faith in yourself.
He says.
I know you can do it. Remember, I'm right here. Nothing's going to go wrong. Until it does.
You mutter petulantly before you throw up your hands.
Okay, fine. I can do this. I have confidence in myself or whatever. I can do this. That's the spirit.
Poe says.
Now, this sequence is going to be a little different since the ship is much heavier than the flight computer was ever equipped to handle, so we're going to fly an old-fashioned ballistic profile to the pole to take advantage of the gravity drop. Since there's the asteroid ring around the equator, gravity is a bit stronger there, but it drops off the closer you get to the poles. This time, we're definitely going to have to use Approach Bravo, since the repulsors aren't enough to lift us over the tree line this time, not with the shield generator on board. This time, we're going to take off at full power. See the yellow level between the consoles? That one's for engine trim. Pull it back, halfway, slowly. Normally it's all the way up to maximize maneuverability, but since we have atmosphere and planetary gravity, the wings and lateral repulsors will do just fine.
As you pull the lever back, you hear a low-pitched whine from behind you. When you stop halfway down, you hear the whine become a mechanical growl, followed by several clacks from all around the ship, before everything suddenly goes quiet. Your eyes widen as you glance at Poe for reassurance, but he's not looking at you. He's checking the status panel on his console, swiping through a few screens and murmuring a bit as he does so, as if reviewing a mental checklist. He turns to you and cracks a grin.
All right, the lateral thrusters are all sealed and the engines are set for maximum thrust. So it all checks out. Since you're my co-pilot for a space run, you'll have to run through the safety checklist too. See the little box in the corner of the panel? Drag it into view. The important things to notice. Engines are fully operational. Check. Reactor is on hot standby. Check. Swipe to the next page.
He waits for you to do so.
And shield generator has no diagnostic errors. Check. Swipe the screen back to the corner and tap the shuttle.
You do, and it zooms to fill the screen and begins to rotate slowly.
Turn it all the way around and check that all the lateral thrusters have sealed. They look like little rectangles in a line, 3 on each side. Are all 6 red?
You nod your head.
Good. You see the label for the engines? The circle with the 0.1% next to it? If there's another circle inside of it, it means the engines have narrowed for maximum thrust, and that's the last thing we need to check here in the hangar. Once we get higher, we'll deploy the shield and prep the ship for vacuum maneuvers before we actually ascend to space.
He presses the center comlink button again.
Control, this is Shuttle Ascension. Black Leader requesting clearance for high-speed spacebound departure on approach Bravo, destined for polar excursion via Sector 12. You have my flight plan. Roger that, Commander. Opening hangar doors now. You may begin your taxi.
This time, however, instead of leading up the same hangar door as yesterday, the flashing lights follow a strip that leads to a giant circle in the middle of the hangar, several meters in front of the slowly opening massive center doors. Poe disengages the damper and flips the automatic switch, and the shuttle glides to the spot where the guide light ends and turns to face the hangar doors. Now you know why you had to go this way. Unlike the other 2 doors, all the trees were cleared away in front of these doors in a long, wide strip which stretches to the edge of a lake, way out on the horizon. And you figured it was so that you'd have enough space to leave the hangar at full power. From outside the shuttle, you could faintly hear the short blast of an alarm and the controller order's voice.
All flight crew, stand clear of the blast deck. Repeat, stand clear of the blast deck.
After a short pause, you hear the controller over the comlink again.
You're cleared for departure, Commander. Have a good flight, you two.
Poe flips down the automatic switch and nods to the engine power bar to your left.
Well, you know what to do. As Chewie always says, punch it.
Following his lead, you shove it all the way forward as far as it will go, and you're pressed back into your seat as you see the hangar flash by you, rapidly replaced by Dakar's verdant scenery. Poe motions for you to pull up, and you do so, sending the ship into a slow climb. Once he's satisfied, he flips the co-pilot control switch back down, and you can feel your toggles lock into a new position to match his. Poe lets out a content sigh next to you and shakes his head.
That feeling when you take off, it never gets old.
He sobers up a little before he turns his attention to the comlink.
Control, Ascension setting course 00 to the North Pole on ballistic path.
He looked as though he's realized something as he turns to you.
I didn't explain what a ballistic path was back there, did I?
You shake your head. You didn't think he mentioned it, and if he did, you obviously weren't real great at paying attention. Not that he could really blame you, not this early in the morning.
Since the shuttle isn't equipped for long-term life support and there isn't a cruiser waiting for us up there, we can't take an escape trajectory to go far into space for safety reasons. On a ballistic path, we fly the shuttle into space using a partial orbit, just in case something goes wrong with the engines when we set them for vacuum. That way, gravity will still bring us down and we can coast back using repulsor control. Minor safety detail to make sure I get you back to base in one piece.
He rolls the shuttle slightly to the right to turn the shuttle north, and as he does so, you can see the Resistance Base's outdoor courtyards come into view far below you, amongst the dark green treetops that show off the magnitude of Dakar's forests. After several minutes, you realize that the blue of the sky has started to fade and blacken outside the windows, hinting that you're skirting the edge of space.
All right, see that?
Poe asks as he motions toward the light in the center of the reactor status ring, which has changed from a solid blue to a flashing yellow.
That means that the atmosphere is thin enough to deploy the shield with optimal power draw. Pull up this black lever.
He points to the one awkwardly bolted to the floor between your seats. As you do so, a blue circle appears around the outline of the shuttle on your screen.
Now, pull the engine trim all the way back and press down to lock it in. That'll take us to the vacuum profile.
As you do what he says, you can hear a variety of hisses and clacks around the shuttle. The 6 red vents on the shuttle on your screen have now become a dozen blue ones around the fuselage.
See that?
Poe asks.
A quick check of the engine shows that they have expanded back to high maneuverability mode, since the inside ring is now gone from the icon.
Poe does one more check of the panel on his left, and then flips the main control switch back to co-pilot.
Take her up,
he says, gesturing dramatically to the star-speckled blackness above you. You take the flight stick and confidently pull back, sending the shuttle higher and higher until it suddenly starts to level off. You try to bring the nose back up to go higher, but the shuttle no longer responds as it did in the atmosphere, and you turn to Poe.
You did it. We're in space now. There's one more notch on the trim lever. Push it until it clicks. That'll engage thruster and repulsor field control so we can try some of the cool stuff I mentioned yesterday.
You reach out to the lever and pull down on it firmly until you hear a soft click.
Now your engine control stick also doubles as your lateral maneuvering. You see that?
He points out the window at what looks like a large cargo crate with the Resistance Starboard stamped on the side.
We put this up here a couple of years ago as a visual reference for lessons like this, since we're so far away from the surface of the planet that it'll seem like you're sitting motionless in space, even if you have your engines at full power. This way you can see what you're doing. Fly towards it, and then fly a circle around it without using your flight stick. Engine and thrusters only. Tilting it will cause the shuttle to spin accordingly, and pushing it will move the ship in that direction without turning. That's the drifting I told you about yesterday. If you twist it in your hand, the shuttle will turn accordingly while keeping it upright.
You fly towards the crate, slowing down as you get close. You turn to Poe for help, but he just shakes his head and points his chin toward the thruster control in your left hand. You have no feel for where the back of the shuttle is or how far out the wings go, so you opt for keeping the crate in view the whole time you fly around it by pushing to the side, then turning to face the crate, pushing, then turning. You turn to Poe to see what exactly he wants you to do, but he just holds up his hands and shakes his head, refusing to tell you anything. You want to call him an ass, but you're far too worried you'll do something wrong to even say that much. After spending several minutes getting more comfortable flying the shuttle in the freedom of space, always double-checking where the crate was so you didn't crash into it, you decide to try to impress Poe with a more daring maneuver and fly in a wide loop around the crate, experiencing the unusual feeling that came with looking up at the car below you at the height of your loop. As you level out, there's a crackling over the comlink, and you immediately jump as the controller's voice floats through the speakers.
Did I do something wrong? Should I not have done that? Commander, just a friendly reminder that you are approaching bingo. Roger, Control. Thank you. We're coming back now. Over and out.
He turns to you.
Time to head back. If we crash because of something as silly as running out of fuel, I think the General would kill whatever was left of me. So I did good?
You ask anxiously, turning to study his face as he turns back the controls.
Well.
Poe corrects you, and you just huff and shake your head as you head back to base. Once you're safely landed, Poe slides his helmet off as he grins at you.
See? I told you that you could do it. Never doubted myself for a second,
you reply dryly, grinning to him in turn. To be honest, you sort of liked this thing you had going with Poe. You didn't really understand flying yet, but it was a skill that could be useful, necessary even. It was still completely foreign to you, and yet he made teaching you look so simple and easy, like you were the one who was doing everything yourself, and he was just there for guidance. You had technically flown in space now, and although you weren't entirely sure what exactly you were doing, you felt like you did, and you supposed that was enough. You make idle banter as you walk back to your room, opening the door to see Finn sitting inside, playing with Annie.
Sorry I'm late.
You reply quickly, apologetically, but he just shakes his head.
Nah, I'm early,
he tells you.
Wanted to make sure I got here with time to spare so I didn't miss you. We're going to the blasting range today. You're going to teach her how to shoot?
Poe asks.
Well, if she's going to learn, it might as well be from the best.
Finn replies teasingly, although you can't help but feel like there might be some bit of truth in that statement.
Well, good luck.
Poe cocks his head to the side.
Something tells me she's a fair shot already. Doubt it.
You reply.
I've never used a blaster before.
Poe gives you a look, and you quickly correct yourself.
All right. Confidence. I'm a fantastic shot. Keep saying that until you believe it.
Poe says with a little wave.
See you tonight. See you tonight.
You echo as he steps outside. Something about that strikes you as odd, and you quickly turn back to Finn.
Tonight? What's tonight? Dinner.
Finn replies, and you tilt your head to the side in consideration. You check on Ladson, who's still asleep, before you wave goodbye to Annie and follow Finn out to the blasting range. It's a long room with a row of blasters of all shapes and sizes along one wall, with several targets set up along the back wall on the far side of the room.
This doesn't get used much.
Finn explains.
The Resistance doesn't usually get too involved on the ground, and pretty much everyone in our assault corps came to us with extensive prior military experience, so there hasn't been a need to train new recruits. Poe's seen a lot more fighting than I have. It's all about aerial battles.
You nod your head quickly in understanding.
But I am a fantastic shot, and it can't hurt to have you learn how to use one of these. And you're so modest, too.
You say teasingly.
Hey, if there's one thing Poe taught me is you have to embrace what you're good at.
Finn says, picking up a blaster pistol and handing it to you.
And accept what you don't. Fair enough.
You say as you hold the blaster in your hand. It's a bit heavier than you expected it to be, and you silently hope that there isn't any sort of recoil.
Regardless of all the hype that happens whenever Merson or Blastech or whoever comes out with some new technology to make their blasters bigger and better than their competitors, all blasters share the same basic parts in the end, whether they're pistols, rifles, or heavy repeaters. There's the grip and the trigger, of course, which vary from species to species, but it looks like you've already got that bit figured out. There's the plasma ammunition, stored in charge packs that you have to swap out and recharge when they get depleted.
He stops and points to the box-like shape protruding from the bottom of the blaster.
There's the firing selector.
He points to a dial surrounded by a ring of 7 letters.
The modes each weapon is capable of vary from manufacturer to manufacturer, but the 4 standardized modes you'll find on every blaster are Safe, Stun, Battle, and Training, marked X, S, B, and T, respectively. Lastly, there's the emitter.
He points to the gleaming curved disc around the tip of the blaster.
This charges the plasma based on what mode you've selected and concentrates it into a bolt. Unfortunately, blasters usually have a reputation for being random and unreliable since most users never bother to learn how to properly clean the emitters, so they get permanently damaged over time and become more and more random. One of the only good things I learned from the First Order is that a properly cleaned blaster maintains its accuracy for much longer time and is much less prone to occasional wild shots inherent to blaster technology, so they always made sure we had time allotted every week for maintaining our weapons. One of my old sergeants who used to work under the Empire told me that the Empire's officers didn't understand this basic fact and always kept their stormtroopers busy with collateral duties and never gave them time to properly clean their weapons. As a result, their weapon quality suffered from neglect, and standard Imperial stormtroopers gained a reputation for being embarrassingly lousy shots at a reasonable range.
He sighs and shakes his head.
But enough of the technicalities. We'll cover those later.
He picks up his blaster and demonstrates how to properly stand to absorb whatever recoil a blaster produced, keeping his shoulder at a slight angle to the target. Both hands on the blaster, elbows slightly bent and one leg planted firmly behind him for stability, as he fires 2 shots perfectly into the center of the furthest target, with the third just barely missing.
Of course, if you were shooting it out with someone, you'd never stand perfectly like this, but we all need to start somewhere. You give it a try.
You mimic his previous stance, and he shifts your shoulders slightly before he steps back and nods his head approvingly.
Alright, now switch to training bolts. Just in case we get one of those wild shots, I'd rather it just be one of those annoying orange stingers bouncing around in here instead of a live round. Aim for the 3rd target, the one with a scorch mark on it.
You breathe in through your nose, then exhale slowly out through your mouth before you fire your shot, and it hits just below the center target, a little off to the right. You fire several more shots, managing to hit 7 out of 13 shots in the center ring before the charge plaque depletes.
Not bad, not bad.
Finn nods his head approvingly as he assesses your target.
Then again, we kind of figured as much.
You tilt your head to the side, remembering what Poe had said before.
How so?
You ask cautiously. How could they assume you'd be such a good shot with a blaster when you had never even used one before?
Rey was a fair shot with a blaster the first time she used one too.
Finn tells you.
People with the Force are just naturally good shots, something to do with their luck countering the randomness of a blaster.
You purse your lips together as the memory comes back to you. You had known that. You had known that back on Starkiller Base, back when you were still there as an interpreter and not a willing captive of Kylo Ren's. The better question was, why had you forgotten it?
Can we still practice, though?
You ask him.
I mean...
You tilt your head to observe his target. He only missed one shot, and even then it was close.
I doubt I'm going to get as good as you, but I'd like to better my aim somewhat if I ever have to use one of these. I can't imagine when I would, but... Absolutely,
Finn says, clapping you on the back.
But that's enough for today. I still need to show you how to clean the blaster and recharge the pack before I get you over to see Rey.
He walks back to a set of shelves and pulls down a small box, setting it on a table and opening it. Inside, you see an extremely stained cloth and a few small tools. He motions for you to hand him the blaster, and you hand it over quickly, still staring inquisitively at the contents inside the box. He sets the blaster down on the table and pulls out one of the tools as he begins undoing the fasteners around the edge of the emitter disc.
I had to make an interesting deal for a set of tools like this since I obviously didn't take mine with me when I left the First Order.
Finn jokes.
Each manufacturer has different locking mechanisms for their emitters, so no one tool can open any manufacturer's emitters. On top of that, they don't particularly like it when people clean their weapons and actively confiscate and destroy toolkits like these, since that would hurt sales of new blasters and displease the investors. Plus, they don't really want people checking out their emitters and learning the trade secrets behind how their technology works. Honestly, I think they would profit more in the long run if they just made easily upgradable emitter kits, but I wouldn't even know where to begin on the design or the legal complications.
He finishes undoing the final fastener, and the emitter disc pops out of the blaster slightly. Finn grips the disc and gently pulls it outward, and you see a short stem wrapped in wires come out with it.
Here we go,
Finn says.
The disc isn't all there is. Behind it is the actual charging coil and the plasma injector, which is what we'll clean today. Hooray!
You say dryly, and Finn just shakes his head as he laughs at you. He pulls a small tube out of the stem and hands it to you. You turn it over in your hands and study it closely. It seemed to be made out of chrome, and on the backside there were supports connecting to a needle in the center.
The inner bit is just an accelerating electrode, so we're not concerned with that.
Finn explains.
The outer part is exactly what it looks like. Chrome. That's to keep plasma from sticking to it, but it's not perfect, so it has to be cleaned occasionally. See what I mean?
He points to the front edge of the tube, and at first you don't see anything. And you turn it in the light until you catch a faint blue smudge on the inner edge.
This?
You ask as you point it out to him.
Yes, that.
Finn says as he nods.
That's a bit of plasma that got stuck. It could have been from your shots, or mine, or the last person who used it. Either way, if we let it sit, eventually it will build up, unbalancing the fields and damaging the emitter. Here, wipe it off gently and then wipe the area with a little oil. That's the black corner.
He hands you the cloth and you wipe the blue smudge until you restore the silver gleam of the chrome, and then turn the cloth to the black corner, which is made out of a slightly thicker material, as you wipe a small amount of oil where the plasma had been.
Is this good?
You ask as you hand the emitter back to him. He turns it over in his hands and then holds it up to the light, nodding his head. He reinserts the injector tube in the emitter stem and hands the emitter to you to place back in the blaster.
There's a small notch to make sure it goes back in the right way.
He explains.
Just line it up and it should slide right back in. I'll do the fasteners up this time, but I'll show you how to do it for a future lesson.
You pick up the blaster and slide the emitter back in, just like he had told you, then hand it back to him. He quickly reattaches the fasteners, then removes the charge pack and motions for you to follow him to a large red crate against the black wall. When you get to it, Finn unlatches the lid and pulls a smaller box out of it. He sets it down on a nearby table and opens the lid to reveal several small syringes filled with a glowing pale blue liquid. He picks one up and hands both the syringe and the charge pack to you.
This is plasma,
Finn explains.
and this syringe is enough for about 20 standard shots. We keep it in the ammo locker just to make sure it doesn't get hit by a stray shot and suddenly detonate. On the charge pack, you'll find a small hole on the side that goes up into the blaster. Put the syringe in there and slowly push the plasma into the pack. Once you're done, press the little button next to the hole and the pack will use the residual charge from the plasma to pressurize it.
You will line the tip of the syringe, then slowly push the plasma in and press the small button, as he said, hearing a small hiss inside the pack as you do so.
And that's how you refill a charge pack,
Finn says as he smiles at you.
Don't worry about putting this away. I'll take care of everything after I get you over to Ray. Sure,
You say with a shrug of your shoulders as he leads you out into the hallway.
Ray told me she had something extra fun cooked up for you today.
Finn says as you walk beside him through the corridors.
Oh,
You reply, unable to hide the surprise in your voice.
so do you guys, talk about... I know she got in your head,
He tells you.
like you got in hers, but she didn't tell me any specifics. You can trust her.
You smile softly to yourself, pleased to see at least some things were being kept secret.
Yeah, I know, I do.
He raises his eyebrows in surprise, and you shrug your shoulders. For some reason, it was really easy to talk to Finn. Like, you felt like you could trust him with anything. Not that you would, but you really felt as though you could talk to him openly, without fear of judgment.
I trust all three of you. And Leia, I guess. That's good to hear.
Finn says, nodding his head in consideration.
We're like a family here, and this is coming from the guy who's never really had one. I can relate to that.
You tell him as you stop outside the door to Ray's green room.
I pretty much had to fend for myself before I reached my academia. You should tell us over dinner.
He suggests.
I'm sure it makes for an interesting story. Yeah,
You say with a laugh to hide your discomfort.
maybe.
He gives you a curt nod as he heads back down the hallway, and you head inside the door to Ray's room, feeling the thick air against your face as soon as you open the door.
Hey,
You say gently as you step inside. Ray is sitting with her eyes shut, hands flat against her knees, in the center of the circle. You stand there awkwardly, not sure if she's in a trance or meditating, or if she had simply fallen asleep. You shuffle your feet and glance around the room, but she doesn't seem to take any notice of you, and you're wondering if you should announce yourself again when she stands up. Wait, that wasn't quite right. Ray was not standing up. Instead, she was hovering a few feet off the ground, legs still crossed underneath her, palms still flat against her knees. You don't want to break her concentration, but you can't help an exhalation of,
holy shit.
as she hovers in front of you. Her eyes open, and she offers you her signature tight-lipped smile as she straightens her legs to stand in front of you.
Would you like to learn how to do that?
She asks, tilting her head to one side.
Yes.
You say eagerly, barely able to continue your enthusiasm.
Yes. Yes, please.
She just lets out a tiny laugh as she sits back down and gestures for you to sit beside her.
I thought we could start with small things, but since I saw you stop my staff yesterday, I'm curious as to whether or not you can retain focus enough to do this. I'm not sure, but I'm willing to try.
You tell her. This was a bit different than Poe's methodology of faking confidence in yourself until you could really do it. Ray had been inside your head, and she was able to pick up on your feelings and impressions. She was able to sense the force within you, and you knew implicitly that she would not make you try something that was completely beyond your skill level. In short, if Ray believed you could do it, you felt that you probably could.
Good.
She says, smiling back at you.
The key here is patience. I know you probably don't want to hear that, but it requires a great deal of focus. You have to pay attention to yourself, to your body, to your surroundings. You need to free your mind of all distractions and just feel the force. Let it flow through you.
She grins sheepishly as she looks away.
The first time I tried, I became very frustrated, believe me. When you trained with Luke?
You ask, and Ray nods her head.
I was very frustrated.
She repeats.
But you need to be patient. You need to remain calm and focused and not dwell on your anger. Dwelling on your negative emotions will only bring you closer to the dark side, and I know you've already found out that you can channel some of your abilities better through it, but that's not all there is. You can find strength in the light as well, but it requires discipline and patience. It's a bit hard to understand right now, I know, but I just need you to trust me. If you continue working towards the light side, you will become stronger. I do trust you.
You tell her. Not just because you do, but because you felt like something suddenly made sense to you, like something clicked into place. Nothing she said was new information, and she hadn't particularly said it in a different way, but you felt like you could understand things a little better now. Kylo was powerful, yes, and he had raw, unadulterated strength, but his attention was distracted, and as a result, he was unfocused. Rey, it seemed, was the opposite of that. She was completely focused, completely calm and at ease with herself, and her force powers seemed to flow naturally from a solid well of light inside her. You didn't know if you would ever be able to reach that level of proficiency, but you at least wanted to try. She almost looks surprised by how quickly you've embraced her oration, but she doesn't comment on it.
Get comfortable,
she instructs.
It's easier if you don't have any distractions.
You adjust your legs into a more comfortable position and put your hands against your knees as you had seen her do.
You can also relax your arms,
she says with a grin.
Just do whatever you usually do to help you focus. I don't usually focus,
you tell her.
I think that's sort of my problem. But you will learn,
she says firmly but patiently.
And if I focus,
you say hesitantly,
that will make my force abilities become stronger. It'll allow you to access it better,
she explains.
If you truly know yourself and what you're capable of, then you need only the force to guide you.
You think about the amount of faith that Poe had in you to take you out into space this morning. You think about Finn's confidence showing you how to use a blaster. You think about Rey teaching you something that looked so advanced on only your second day because she believed you could do it.
I can do this,
you tell her. You close your eyes and try to focus on that, their energy, their total combined strength lifting you up, but it doesn't work. You can still feel your legs against the ground.
Well, shit.
Slightly disappointed, but not frustrated, you decide to try another approach. But first, you take some time to just let yourself be. To let yourself simply listen to the babble of water running around you. You think about the symbolism of the water, fresh and clean and purifying, and pretend that it was purifying you right now, erasing all of the darkness you held inside of you. You knew it wouldn't eradicate it from your being, not completely, but if you could perhaps wipe out a little bit more of the darkness, allow a little more light in, perhaps you could do it. You don't open your eyes, but you pull sensation back to your feet and realize that you are still sitting on the ground. You haven't moved, not even an inch.
I'm not doing anything. I'm just sitting here.
You push the voice of negativity down and away from you, trying to focus. You remember how you were able to summon Kylo Ren's blade from his lightsaber, even when you didn't think you could, by focusing on him. You had allowed yourself to channel his power by feeling the weight of his helmet, the taut muscles in his arms, and then you had used that to call the blade forth. But Kylo wasn't here now, and the only person's head you had to get inside was yours. That should have made things easier, but it wasn't. You knew it wasn't. Slowly, though, you try to come to terms with yourself. You feel your body 1 inch at a time, starting with your toes, feeling the sensation of your boots around your feet, slowly taking stock of yourself, bit by bit. Your focus moves to your ankles, then up your legs, to your knees, where you can feel your hands gently resting. You can feel your butt against the stone tiles beneath you, and a slight stiff pain in your lower back from your hunched position that you weren't aware of before. You sit up straight and tilt your neck from left to right, getting all the kinks out, refusing to back down from your progress. You can't deny that you've lost your focus, though, and so you exhale a deep breath as you start back down at your toes, before moving up your body bit by bit. You work your way up to the top of your head this time, but you're honestly not sure where to go from there. Should you try to pull yourself up? Push? You're not sure what you should do, and so you decide to take stock of your body as a whole and picture yourself lifting your body into the air as one whole unified piece. You picture yourself suspended in the air, hovering there, just an inch above the ground, and for a moment you feel a tingling sensation under your legs, and you think you did it. You really did it. You open your eyes and expect to see yourself 2 or 3 feet above the ground, but no, you haven't moved. You feel taller, although maybe that's just because you're sitting up straighter, but you're still sitting on the ground.
I tried.
You say weakly.
You did.
Rey confirms.
How'd you feel?
You shrug, taking account of yourself.
Quieter?
You ask.
A bit more relaxed, but I don't know about focused. You'll get there.
Ray says as she gets to her feet, and you bite your lip as you look up at her.
You didn't really expect me to do it today, did you?
You ask as you stand up yourself. She just shrugs.
You could have surprised me.
You let out a small laugh as your stomach growls.
How long was I meditating for? Over an hour.
Ray replies simply, and you stare at her in shock.
Over an hour?
You repeat incredulously.
I thought that couldn't have been more than like 20 minutes. Over an hour.
Ray confirms. You just shake your head as you hold your arm out to the side, gesturing for her to lead the way.
To the mess hall, then.
You say.
After you.